well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. We're going to be talking with some of the fine folks from the Gun Owners Action League in Massachusetts here in just a minute. Busy week for GOAL and for gun owners and for anti-gunners in Massachusetts. You had a huge hearing on Tuesday, more than 4 hours long, a joint hearing between House and Senate committees, talking about over 4 dozen gun-related bills. Now, not all of them were bad, but in Massachusetts, as you can imagine, many of them were. Jim Wallace from the Gun Owners Action League got a lot of time before the microphone there, more than a half hour, I think, not only giving his initial insight into a lot of these proposals, but also getting and giving back and forth between lawmakers. They had a lot of questions for Jim, and he had a lot to say. So we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Before we do, though, let's talk about this for just a second. Joe Biden's America and the fact that it's crushing us. You've got companies laying off tens of thousands of workers, one after another. Americans working 2 jobs just to get by. Inflation pushing hardworking families to the brink. Just look at the price of lunch meat next time you go to the grocery store. And a digital dollar could be coming out of the pipeline to completely destroy our way of life. The truth is, you need a plan. You know it, and I know it. And that's why you should call Goldco. So you can diversify your savings and investments with gold and silver before things get worse. They're a 6-time Inc. 5000 winner, 2022 Company of the Year, thousands of 5-star reviews, and they've helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver. They're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supplies last. And if you call them today, qualified callers will get a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. So don't wait. Call Goldco at 855-412-3806 today. That's 855-412-3806. And now let's get to our conversation with the folks from the Gun Owners Action League, all about the latest push. Seems like the never-ending push for gun control in Massachusetts. Take a look and listen. There were so many bills heard in Massachusetts this week. We couldn't even have just one guest to talk about it. We had to get both Big Jim Wallace from the Gun Owners Action League and Mike Harris from the Gun Owners Action League. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining me on the program today. It's good to see you.
As always,
you as well.
Welcome back to the Second Amendment Battleground State.
No kidding.
On Mike's beard, though. We got to get that beard really going, you know?
I gotta say, I mean, it's not very long, but it's not very gray either. So you got that going for you, Mike.
Yeah. Well, he's only been working with us for a few years. So.
I'm getting there.
Give it time.
They're starting to pop up.
So speaking of FaceTime, Jim, you got quite a bit of FaceTime during this hearing on Tuesday. You and I were talking off air, and most folks, you get your 2 or 3 minutes or whatever, and then they move on to the next bit of next person who wants to testify. But it sounds like you had quite a few exchanges with lawmakers, asking you questions, and you getting a chance to sound off on some of these bills.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of always been the rule of thumb up there that you get 3 minutes to testify, but if somebody asks you a question, timer's off. So because they have to give you, well, they don't have to, but they give you time to answer the questions. And, so Mike testified, Carrie Ann testified, and then I talked about a couple of bills. And then the questions ensued. The House chair started off, which was kind of interesting. We get along well, but his demeanor was a little bit gotcha. And he wanted very clear, quick, one-word answers to some of his questions, and I've been up there 25 years. That's not going to happen. You're not going to put me in a corner with one-word answers. So I was taking my time and answering the questions, and a couple of times he said, can you just give me quick answers so we can, move along with the hearing? Nope, not going to do it. So we had a lot of discussions about some of the issues. He was really hung up on percentages of everything. What percentage of these type of guns are sold in Madison? What percentage of gun owners do this? And it was really hung up on percentages. But then we got into some of the other, some of the other reps were asking some very good questions. And, a lot of it pointed towards things that GOAL had actually gotten passed 9 years ago and weren't being used. For instance, the Criminal Firearms and Trafficking Division of the state police. That was our language. We created that 9 years ago. Doesn't exist. 3 sections of criminal law that we drafted and got passed dealing with breaking and entering to steal guns and trafficking guns across state lines. And people who were harmed by those guns never been used. So a lot of the legislators were very curious about that. Interestingly enough, when it came back to the Senate chair, Timilty of the committee, he said, Jim, I got a few questions for you. And please feel free to take your time answering these questions. So it was
you should take as long as you want.
yeah. So it was kind of interesting, but they were really keying in on some of the stuff that we had already give them. And I actually described them as, we've given you the tools, but you've left those tools in the toolbox to rust.
Yeah.
You haven't used them. So now you want to pass more laws that you're probably not going to use.
Right.
Unfortunately, at the end of gosh, I think Mike had it. We were up 47 minutes.
47 minutes. Something like that. Yeah. It was a marathon.
So that could be a record.
Right. Pretty good.
But then the last person to try to ask me questions was the representative from Lawrence.
Yeah, Rapolino.
Very berating, very insulting, because we had given them the state's data, not our data, not a statistic, not a survey.
The Department of Public Health's data.
Yeah, on homicide, suicide, and accidents. And he accused us of manipulating the statistics to embarrass the legislature. And I just wasn't going to stand for it. I gave him a couple of minutes to try to come up with a question.
Yeah.
But he just kept hammering on it. And finally I just interrupted him because I'm not going to take that. And I'm not going to let my staff face that. So and I think it was the first time in my career. I thought it was kind of cool that the chairman had to gavel us down. I thought it was pretty cool.
He did.
But, bang, bang, but and even the chairman was a little bit upset at this guy because he didn't have a question. He just wanted to give a speech.
Yeah.
Because all the didn't fit his narrative,
Right.
Because regardless of how people feel on the issue, we've cultivated good relationships, respectful relationships with all these legislators, and for him to do that was really out of line.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
I mean, you're always going to have, I guess, someone who wants to grandstand, right? And look, I mean, it's one thing, and you guys see this all the time. It's one thing to get up there and you get the slanted questions, as you say, let's focus on these percentages and let's, ask stuff that really is irrelevant, but it's going to advance a particular point of view.
Right.
We're all used to that. But again, like if you're just out there, because I want to go viral on TikTok. I want people to see me, take the gun lobby to task. I mean, that's the stuff that's just infuriating, right? Because regardless of whether or not you're a gun owner or a Second Amendment supporter, look, the vast majority of us care about public safety. That's not the argument. That's not where our disagreement lies. The disagreement lies in how we best protect the public. And the three of us and a lot of other people say, well, you don't do it by making it harder for people to protect themselves. You don't do it by infringing on their fundamental civil rights. But to suggest that you don't give a damn, that you don't care about violent crime because you care more about your guns, that's just, that's absurd. So, obviously, look, we were talking about over the past few months, 4420, which is now turned into 4159, 4139. Okay.
Which, by the way, Kim, first time Mike and I have ever seen this.
Yeah.
The day the House was debating the bill, they literally changed the bill number twice on the floor during debates. Never seen that in my life.
Never.
Because
they want to keep that bill number long enough for you guys to print signs, and then as soon as you get your signs printed, we're like, we're going to change the name again. That's all that's about.
It's a relic up there now,
right?
The chairman said that when he was up talking about the bill. He goes, "Whatever their sign says now." But the interesting thing is, it was 4135 when it hit the floor. Then there were some objections because it's a spending bill. Spending bills have particular rules to be followed. Not that they care, but both Democrats and Republicans said, wait a minute, this is a spending bill. You have to follow certain rules.
Right.
So what they did was midstream, they changed it to 4135-2. So it was no longer a spending bill.
Right.
So, and then just before they took the final vote, it was 4139. And everybody's up there going, the hell's going on? We've never even seen anything like this before.
Never.
But yeah, was it's just been quite a show. I mean, I know I should be mad, and we are mad, but it's just comical because it's like somebody in the courtroom trying to say, Your Honor, it wasn't me. Why? Because I don't identify that way anymore. So, or
right.
something like that.
Yeah.
They keep changing the rules as they go along.
Hey, listen, you got to keep your sense of humor, else this drive me crazy. But I wanted to ask. So we've got the House bill that's been out there. The Senate, has been working on their own. But what were some of was there a main focus in the 56 some odd bills? I know that there were some pro-gun bills in there too, but what were some of the actual specifics that you guys were testifying against? I mean, what are some of the things that you're hearing coming down from the Senate or the House, maybe that's not been a part of the Lawful Citizens Imprisonment Act to date?
Yeah, well, we took a little bit of a different strategy on this one, Cam.
Okay.
Rather than wasting our time talking, opposing bills, in our initial official testimony in our 3 minutes, we spent time on stuff that we had. But what we were trying to do with the extended warranty, I guess, of testimony, was actually talking about the things that exist that they're not doing.
Right.
Like I said earlier, the tools they already have that we've given you that you're not using. And there was a lot of discussion about that. Now, the whole ghost gun things, I had to explain to them that there's no such thing as a ghost gun in the 2A community. There isn't. Right. Especially in Massachusetts, because if we build something, we have to report it. So where's the ghost gun? Where's the ghost in the ghost gun, So they didn't understand that. They didn't know that. But we actually have a piece of legislation, you can call it a ghost gun bill if you want, that only hammers the prohibited people. And we actually included things like parts, because what's happening, I guess, especially in Springfield, is they'll go in a drug bust. They'll find the drugs, no guns, but they'll find, 100 Glock switches that they know are being used as drug trade barter. So we would include everything. As long as you're a prohibited person, if you're in possession of these parts, I don't care. Go get them. That statement I just made, the media cut out the part about prohibited person and just said, if it's ghost guns, go get them. That was the edit they did to my quote. So it was it is what it is.
That's a little frustrating.
So the interesting thing is conversation, and Mike can maybe go more into this because the Libertarian and Mike came out with a meeting with the senator yesterday. And he's like, well, what if they're not a prohibited person and they have gun parts? And I said, well, who cares?
What does it matter?
If they're not a prohibited person.
Yeah. Who
cares? Well, they might be able to build a gun. Well, they might be able to go to a Radio Shack, get parts and build a bomb, but they're not. Yeah. So who cares? So
I mean, are we going to criminalize unregistered mufflers? You could build a car out of it, and it might not be registered.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's right.
Don't give them any ideas, Mike.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So were any of the lawmakers outside of the usual suspects receptive to the idea that there are tools in the toolbox? I when I was writing about the hearing for bearing arms, I included comments by the mayor of Springfield, Dominic Sarno. Who is not, I don't know if he was at the hearing, but the same day that this hearing's held, he's talking to the local media saying, hey, our problem, because there's a record high number of homicides in Springfield, Massachusetts this year. And he said, our problem is repeat violent offenders. Like we know who these guys are, right?
That is always the case.
And we're putting them right back out on the street, which I thought, went hand in hand with, I forget who the Democratic state senator was, I believe, who talked about, I reached out to my local police chief. I asked him, how many times, do you run across law-abiding gun owners who are committing these crimes? And he said, in 20 years, I've had one. So it does seem like the knowledge at least should be there that it's not legal gun owners who are driving up violent crime in Massachusetts, right? That the problem really is a very small number of very prolific violent offenders who kind of get, in this rinse and repeat cycle in the criminal justice system. But, I got to say, I mean, I think that these gun control bills are probably going to pass next year. So is it about crime at all, Jim? Or is it really just about we don't want gun owners? We don't want gun ownership. We don't want you exercising this right. Crime is the excuse, but the real goal is to eradicate your ability to exercise your Second Amendment rights.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think some of it is laziness.
Okay.
In that I mean, the meeting we had with the senator, we gave them our bill that Jim had talked about. We said, oh, we'd like to go after these people. Instead, they're like, oh, I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if we can go after those people. Like, of course you can. That's the whole point of this. And I think the ability for them to just say that they've done something is more important to them than actually doing something. So I think it's a bit of laziness, and I think it's a bit of the banality of evil, I guess, where you kind of just sit by and watch instead of and just say, hey, we're going to go after this whole topic and this whole subject matter and all of these people instead of differentiating. You get all of your rights until you prove that you shouldn't have them all, and that's kind of the theory that gun owners like us work off of. But some people don't see it that way, I guess, and some of those people sit in legislative seats.
Right. All right. So
it was an interesting conversation too about the red flag bill, because I've been hammering on that ever since it got passed, because there's no follow-up. If you've identified what you think is the next mass killer, all you're going to do is take away their gun license and send them home. And some of them at the committee didn't really know that. And the other thing that shocked them was, I said, if you believe somebody's dangerous and they don't legally own a gun, you can't file a petition, because it's only for licensed gun owners, because that's the only thing it does. And they just kind of looked at me like a bunch of spaniels, like, And I said, yeah, that's true. If you really believe somebody's the next killer, but they don't legally own a gun, this is useless. So you even if they do, so now you've taken away their license and you've let the killer walk away.
Right.
And one of the senators we had a very good conversation with, he said, yeah, but at least we've got the gun. But you've let him go. So no dangerous hearing, no 72-hour evaluation, no follow-up. And I often ask, well, okay, can this person work in a school? You've let him go. You didn't charge him with anything. So it's fine if they're a school principal and they just look at you like, what do you mean? So there's no commitment to follow up. And that goes with criminal prosecution as well. You have every tool. Mike and I were having a conversation yesterday at lunch, because there's a couple of bills in about making a specific crime about shooting at a house. And I asked Mike, because Mike went to law school, and I'm like, that's not a crime already?
I'm like, it's,
And
I mean, not specifically.
Say, we really have nothing to charge him on. Really? Then you really stink at your job.
Right.
It's like, but they're very eager to pass laws. But also in Massachusetts, probably, I don't know, ever since Deval Patrick, they've made Massachusetts a really nice place to live if you're a criminal, because there's all kinds of rules about, no cash bail now. There's all kinds of rules about, we're not going to prosecute these certain crimes because it drags them down. And, I mean, I even used the example of, this was way pre-COVID, but one of the cases we used was somebody in Worcester. Guy was arrested with a real AK-47, not the ones we have fun with. Eradicated serial number, 20,000 bags of heroin. He's out on bail and committed the same crime 2 weeks later.
Got another AK.
Now, you can't tell me you're serious when you're not following through.
Right.
And the legislatures may not be sure. Dave Vieira, give him credit, Rep. Dave Vieira,
he's
was
awesome.
really upset. So he didn't know until we told him about all these things that are not being done that already exist. And he was very demanding that, hey, listen, here we are debating about more laws. And you were just educated on all these laws that Goal actually drafted and gave you, and you're not using. So don't talk to me about violent crime if you're not going to do what you should be doing.
Absolutely.
All that stuff has been statute since 2014, almost a decade. They've been on the books and completely unfunded.
What's
going on?
Well, we all have our suspicions about what's going on, right? When reducing
the narrative.
Absolutely. And, to me, it goes back to you talked about what happened after the 98 bill, Jim, and what 300,000 gun owners leaving the state of Massachusetts. And I think that's honestly their strategy. Even if this is based on some sort of public safety strategy, the idea is, well, if we don't have any legal gun owners around, then there won't be any legal guns for people to get a hold of illegally. And therefore, gun violence will disappear magically. It's not how it works in real life, but I guess maybe it's a nice fiction for them to rest their heads on at night. Listen, before we run out of time, because we could talk for hours here, but I do want to ask, what's the next step? I mean, I know that I've been seeing reports saying, well, nothing's going to happen immediately. The Senate's not going to follow up on the House bill until after the new year. What do gun owners in Massachusetts need to be doing right now? Even if there's no vote imminent in the House or Senate.
Buying ammo.
Okay. Fair enough.
Reach out to your senator.
Yeah. It's they're going to be on break for pretty much the whole month of December unless something strange happens.
Yeah.
They have to come back in an emergency. So now's the opportunity to find out because during the holidays, right? They're going to be at all kinds of functions.
Around.
Parades, whatever it might be, the Council on Aging, find them, go talk to them, tell them what's going on in your mind. And that's the important thing. While Mike and I are having meetings with a lot of these people and going through every possible scenario and telling them that, hey, listen, if you want legitimate stuff, we'll help you. But, if you just want to do what the House did, no sense in it. But this is the time to really find them locally and go talk to them.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you again for everything you do and for having those meetings and for remaining mostly civil in the face of incivility from lawmakers. I'm glad you got to experience the pounding of the gavel, Jim. That is just nice. A pretty cool moment. I'm out of line. You're out of line. So good for you.
That's right.
Jim Wallace, Mike Harris, thank you both again for joining us here on Cam and Company. Look forward to talking to you guys both again very soon.
Thanks, Cam.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
So, we'll be paying attention to what's going on in Massachusetts. I know that things are really going to start to heat up in January, but there's always twists and turns, it seems, between now and then. Every day has the opportunity to bring something unusual. All right, let's turn our attention now to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there. Second suspect in armed robbery of upstate store arrested. This is from South Carolina. Second suspect in the robbery of a retail store in Spartanburg County has been taken into custody. 26-year-old Stuart Eugene Kaufman of Boiling Springs, arrested after he was identified through surveillance photos from the robbery at Academy Sports in Spartanburg back on November 18th. Gee, I wonder how they could spot him based solely on those surveillance footage. The cameras are sometimes so fuzzy, you can't get a clear image. I don't know. I guess the sheer number of facial tattoos made it a little bit easier for law enforcement to identify their suspect in this case. Kaufman's now been charged with armed robbery. Investigators say he was an accomplice to another man named Justin Phillips in the heist. Kaufman was found hiding in the attic of a home in Boiling Springs. He's also charged with a probation violation, by the way. Two other people arrested at the home after methamphetamine was discovered there. Sheriff's office discovered a firearm on the premises as well. Investigators say the same home was the scene of a drive-by shooting that injured an underage girl back on November the 7th. There were no charges filed in that case due to a lack of witness cooperation, according to the sheriff's department. And then we get this little aside. I wish we knew more about this, but not much information. WIRD radio in Greenville, South Carolina says that the sheriff's office reports that Kaufman has a long criminal history with over 30 cases since 2014. Now, he's only 26 years old. So if he has managed to rack up 30 different cases in the less than 10 years that he's been an adult. Now, maybe some of those offenses are juvenile offenses. I don't know. You got to work really hard to be busted that many times in that short amount of time. And again, apparently not much time behind bars to show for it in any of those 30 cases, since he's just 26 years of age and he was still out on the street to allegedly commit an armed robbery there in South Carolina. Today's armed citizen story from Hampton, Virginia, where a carjacking suspect was shot and seriously injured by his intended victim. Yeah, boy, you hate to see that, don't you? Hampton Police Division said 22-year-old Kenneth Maddox Jr. tried to carjack a man at gunpoint early on Saturday morning. Less than 2 hours later, police say that Maddox tried to carjack another man. And a fight ensued. This time, the victim was able to get his own gun, at which point he shot the suspect who fled in the vehicle, or shot at the suspect who fled in the vehicle he was carjacking. Apparently, he did strike the suspect because a few minutes later, Maddox showed up at a local hospital suffering from life-threatening injuries as a result of the shooting. Maddox's life was saved by doctors, and now he is charged with 2 counts of carjacking, as well as 2 counts of the use of a firearm and commission of a felony. The armed citizen who acted in self-defense apparently not facing any charges at all, as should be the case. Finally today, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing, a police officer and a Good Samaritan in Midland, Michigan, who helped save 3 people from a burning vehicle. Very scary moments here. It happened around 4:45 Wednesday afternoon. There was a car carrying an 86-year-old man, an 85-year-old woman, a 79-year-old man, and a 78-year-old woman. So you had 4 elderly people in this car. It was originally reported as a minor crash with no injuries. But when a Midland police officer arrived, he found the car on fire, and 3 of the elderly people could not get out of the vehicle. A 4th occupant did manage to escape. The Midland police officer and a bystander who was in the area, saw what was going on, quickly were able to pull the other 3 occupants out of the car. Again, while it's on fire, the Midland Fire Department then responded to extinguish the blaze. Ambulances transported all 4 people in the car to a local hospital for treatment of minor smoke inhalation. Police officer and bystander also sought treatment for smoke inhalation there, but no serious injuries were reported from this crash, amazingly. And again, I think that is in large part because of the quick thinking and the fast action, not only of that police officer, but the bystander in Midland, Michigan, who saw what was going on, didn't drive by, didn't say, it's somebody else's concern. They were in a spot and an opportunity to help. And that's exactly what they did, saving the lives of 3 people in the process. So again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. We thank both the police officer and the Good Samaritan in Midland, Michigan for truly making a life-saving difference. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as always. Don't forget to check out bearingarms.com throughout the day and throughout the rest of the week and the weekend, because we'll be updating the site with all of the latest Second Amendment news and information that you need to know about. If you like what you see, I'd encourage you to become a VIP or VIP Gold member as well. Just go to bearingarms.com/subscribe. Use the promo code GUNRIGHTS, and you can get a significant savings on your VIP or VIP Gold membership. We're going to give you exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, news stories and analysis that matter, because your support matters too. So thank you again. We'll be back with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company on Monday. But like I said, don't forget to check out the website in the meantime. Until we talk again, be well, be safe, and be free.